Hey guys, GWS here. Here for another thing about the whole Gillette situation because there's just so much more to cover about this. Because this is whole. I came out last night and I made a video on this. Watch that, listen to it. If if you want more context into my position on this, but pretty much I am what I call a social justice warrior. There are a lot of good points feminists make, and there are a lot of bad points. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. You can watch the video. But the thing is that if you listen to how liberals are breaking this down, how stuff is being misrepresented, how the whole debate, and then now you're having the whole narrative. If you go to the Gillette video on YouTube, you will see that periodically they are purging dislikes and they are removing negative comments from the video. You'll see their number of dislikes going down periodically. It'll go up and then it'll go down, and the ratio of likes to dislikes in the video was a lot worse yesterday than it was today. But more than anything, it's like the way the Young Turks, which is featured in the ad, um, is taking this. And they respond to Ben Shapiro's argument, which is um, I don't think Shapiro and I have a perfect alignment, but I think his points are pretty good in terms of, well, you'll hear the point here in a second. But basically, the Young Turks did a response, and I just want to listen to it because I was a little bit curious. I don't even do the Young Turks commentary anymore because it's just boring. It's just a bunch of social justice drivel. Um, like the first part of the ad, they pretty much accuse conservatives of having no nuance, of saying you're arguing against the ad. First of all, one of the big problems with the Gillette ad, there are many, is that, um, you know, who are they to talk? Like you have, there's a story here. I believe this is it right here. This is Procter and Gamble factory investigations, and included in this is, I believe, child labor accusations. And this is in China. This is Guangdong province in China. And, as you can see just from the picture, it just looks a very nasty place to look. Narrow hallways, etc. You got a little clipboard there. And at least from what I'm hearing, there's a child labor situation there. And so, that's the number one problem. It isn't that people are against the message. In general, yeah, you want people to be good people. Of course. The problem is the insinuation that there is a problem with the culture and there's a problem with toxic masculinity. And as I pointed out in my video, there's no problem with toxic masculinity because if you look at the stuff featured in the ad, 99% of it does not happen. Like, when you see kids fighting, nobody, and I lived in the South for 15 years. 15 years, like, friggin' ruby red conservative as it gets, won't see a liberal, won't smell a liberal for miles. Ruby red conservative. Never once have I ever seen a fight break out between children and nothing be done about it. Just say boys will be boys. Now that saying is true. There is a saying like that. And Jink will sit there and he'll, like, of course there's a saying like that. Like, they said it. It's like, boys will be boys. It's just people being rambunctious, a little over adventurous, pushing borders, all that. Not even with women, just like like you go doing some stupid crap that isn't immoral, but it's just stupid, like, throwing frickin' toilet paper up in the trees for Halloween or something, just dumb stuff like that. And, you know, and even something like that, most of the time you'll see, discipline. And see, conservatives are actually on the discipline side of the debate. What liberals believe in with children is that you have to counsel them, talk to them. You don't discipline them, you treat them with kid gloves and all that. So it's like, really, when you're talking about the discipline end, they're the ones that don't believe in it. But anyhow, I spent a little bit too much time talking. You know, there's a specific thing in here that I just have to respond to. And this is the exchange, the Ben Shapiro argument, and then the response. I'll play this a little bit at length. I'll try not to stop it. And then after it's over, I'll give my comments.
Okay.
Okay.
So we got to go to the last clip. Again, this is Ben Shapiro. He continues on with his argument, and I have to debunk it. Take a look.
If you want to know what has created serious problems in American society, it's a lack of men, not overpresence of men. It's been dearth of men that has created massive problems in American society. Today, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, some 23% of American children live with a single mother. That percentage has tripled since 1960. As of 2012, 55% of black kids and 31% of Hispanic kids live with one parent, predominantly the mother. And are they getting a male presence at school? No. It turns out 76% of teachers are female. 80% of social workers are female. At the same time, toxic masculinity has risen. So maybe it's that in the absence of a strong male presence providing guidance to young men, what you end up with is toxic masculinity. Because it turns out if you're getting your male influence from other teenagers, teenagers are stupid and more aggressive, and they make worse decisions. So it's not that there have been too many fathers inculcating bad ideas in their kids. It's that there have been too few fathers around to teach their sons responsibility and decency. That's the major problem in American society, not too much masculinity.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just concede to Ben Shapiro's point that it's problematic when, kids aren't raised with a father in the household. But whose fault is it that there isn't a father in the household? If the father decides he wants to be a deadbeat and not a father, isn't that toxic masculinity? And his argument is we need a father in the household to help raise the kid or kids and make sure that it doesn't perpetuate toxic masculinity. Yeah. Isn't that what the Gillette commercial is all about?
No, actually, that's not what the Gillette commercial is all about. In fact, the Gillette commercial is against a strong male presence because that is the air of masculinity that I talked about last night. Is you have somebody who commands that kind of respect in the household, especially for kids, and that has an influence. What Ben Shapiro is saying is that there's no man in the house, period. It's not there's a deadbeat father in the house. There is simply no man in the house. That is what he's saying. And well, we'll just play this because she's going to be a little bit clearer in a second about what she's talking about when she says there's no fatherly presence. So let's play it.
Having older generations of men set a good example for younger generations so boys will grow up to be better? I mean...
So Ben spits out stats in a way that is appealing to the unsophisticated. So because it doesn't have context and it doesn't make any sense.
How many
so he says, 76% of teachers are women. Okay, but think about that stat. So who's stopping the men from becoming teachers?
No, Cenk, there is an orchestrated effort to prevent men from becoming teachers.
Okay,
yep.
And so what do you want to do?
Okay, so what's your suggestion then? To force men to become teachers? Like, you're not going to get this kind of cultural change and say, convince men to want to be teachers. There is a discernible difference between the male brain and the female brain that makes certain activities preferable to men and preferable to women. But see, this is the whole problem when you deny science. When you deny the very real science of biological sex, and you try to say that everything is on a spectrum. You can't realize that the male brain has more gray mass and the female brain has a larger corpus callosum in order to communicate between both hemispheres of the brain. And this whole difference, among other neurological differences, predisposes men and women to different professions. And this was the whole thing, was historically it didn't really, it wasn't a bad thing, because the way things evolved in the way God put things is that you had that male presence, that male leadership, and the whole, men teach differently than women, basically. And that is when you had camps and you had, you know, the traditional thing where you had men a lot more committed to their girl. The whole thing was he was there to teach the kid how to be a man in many ways, in terms of working, in terms of understanding sexual feelings, etc. And when you don't have that male presence, like, that is just not there. And that's the whole problem, is that, you don't solve the problem by making men be teachers and nannies and all that. That's not the point. The point being made is that the male presence is naturally in the home teaching their child. And when the man is absent, that's not there. But you're going to see even more stupidity here in a second.
80% of social workers are women. Do you want to fire them? And do you want to do a quota for men to become social workers? I thought you were against quotas. And then he sets up straw men. Like, he says,
I love
how,
just the point, I love how jank here. Strawman's Ben Shapiro saying that he wants quotas, and then says, oh, he does a strawman. Oh my goodness, jank, never change, never change.
Too many fathers, that it's too little fathers. Well, who said the problem was too many fathers? Did Gillette say, no, guys, we've got too many fathers here?
When did Ben Shapiro say the problem? Their statement of the problem was too many fathers. Ben Shapiro's talking about why children are not growing up correctly, and why men in society don't have that, as good of values as they should have.
Let's bring it down.
But it goes further than that. It goes further than that. The fathers are the ones who have made the decision to not be fathers. The fathers are the ones who decided to abandon their kids and go off and do whatever else they want to do. So, like, who's...
Okay. Do you understand the complexities behind relationships and why they end? There's a lot of deadbeat fathers. Like, there's no denying that. But to act like every single situation where the father's missing is because the father is a deadbeat father and he left, that comes from somebody who grew up in a rich, probably gated community as you did, Anna Kasparian, because the reality is that relationships end for a lot of things, and most of the time it's mutual. It's mutual because the husband and wife, they find out that they're not compatible together, they have different goals, and then they go their separate ways. And part of this is because we have condensed the whole process of courtship, engagement, and then marriage. And when people don't know each other, it becomes the relationship is a lot more vulnerable, because there's just not enough knowledge. There's not enough being through enough situations to understand that you love one another. It takes a lot to know that, and that's part of the problem. But the whole thing is like, when these relationships end, it's often not the father's fault. It's often nobody's fault. Relationships end partly because of the way society is structured. Society is basically not very friendly toward married couples. Like, everything is fast paced, everything is about consumption, everything is about, you know, I got mine, the whole selfish deal. And that's the whole thing. You can't just boil it down to fathers being deadbeats. Like, you're making the whole perversion mistake that they're making, and you're not even understanding that you're making it because you have no perception of yourself. And I hate to break it to Miss Kasparian here, but that's the whole problem with her to begin with. Let's move on.
Fault
See if
is
there's
that? Are you
anything else.
blaming the women in this situation?
And
for
that is what is implicit, right? So
Yeah, just no self-reflection at all. I haven't listened to past this, but bonus content, I'll do some live response.
and of course, it's not all fathers because we do nuance. We don't live in a black and white world. Well, who's guilty? Is it the men or the women? Or maybe it doesn't break down like that.
Right.
All right, great ad by
Okay.
Gillette, and conservatives can't stand that they're.
Wait a minute. Sometimes the men, sometimes it's the women. And you do. What does that have to do with the ad? Is that what the ad is saying? Like, when did the ad point out anything about women at all? And I actually agree. Most of the problem is with men, or in the very least, society is not very good for women right now. That's where I could agree. But the fact that is, if you look at the ad, like, the ad doesn't say sometimes men, sometimes it's women. It's just, I don't know. This is typical TYT garbage. I just had to respond to this. Just too much utter gutter trash nonsense from them. Thanks for listening, guys. God bless.